industry experts from powerhouse brands. Earned Summit, Building a Community by Tribe Dynamics.
With Marvin, and I am Vice President of Brand Partnerships at Ipsy. And welcome to the Tribe Dynamics panel discussion this afternoon entitled Getting Off the Ground, Best Practices for Launching Your Own Consumer Brand. We are incredibly fortunate to have three inventive and innovative founder and CEOs with us today. We have Moiz Ali, who is the CEO and founder of Native, Hatzistefanis, who is the CEO and founder of Rodial, and Nancy Twine, who is the CEO and founder of Briogeo. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. It's wonderful to have you. Everyone at home is so excited and tuned in to hear more about your stories and details and just soak up all the advice that you have to give. So to kick it off, I would love to hear from each of you eventually, what made you start your own brand? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? What built this foundation? Nancy, will you kick us off?
Yes, absolutely. I've actually always wanted to be an entrepreneur ever since I was younger. I have so many little businesses that I've started, even from less than 10 years old. But when it comes to Briogeo, I actually didn't start my career in beauty. I started in finance, and I worked at Goldman Sachs in the commodity sales and trading division. And it was actually the start of the 2007-2008 financial crisis. And it was a really, really challenging time. But even just a couple of years in, I realized that finance wasn't what I was passionate about. And unfortunately, around that time too, I lost my mom pretty suddenly in a car incident. And it really just pushed me to do a lot of soul searching to figure out what it was I was passionate about and what I wanted to do next. So long story short, really unique family background. My mom was a chemist, and growing up, we used to make a lot of our own beauty products from scratch, using oils, extracts, salts, sugars, etc. And while I was doing the soul searching, I thought back to those childhood memories of making my own beauty products. And ultimately, that's what led me to create Briogeo and ultimately leave the finance world for beauty.
Maria, what about you?
So I was always passionate about fashion and beauty since I was a little girl. My first job while I was at uni was a beauty writer for 17 magazine back in Greece, where I'm originally from. I did that for a bit, but I was really restless. And I moved to New York. I did an MBA and I studied finance. But the reality was I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Of all places, I ended up in banking with Salomon Brothers, first in New York and then moved to London. At the beginning, it was super exciting. I was working 24/7, the adrenaline of doing a deal, it would just drive me, and I was really enjoying it. But a couple of years into banking, I got called into the boardroom and I got fired. And you know what? I was devastated because I was really young and this was my first big career step. But it was the shock that I needed to make me realize what my passion in life was, and it definitely wasn't finance. So that is when I started thinking about my next steps, and I decided to launch my own beauty brand, Rodial.
And Moiz.
It sounds like all three of us have had different lives before we started becoming entrepreneurs. I used to be a lawyer in New York, and certainly like during the financial crisis or just afterward. I started in 2009. I came from a family of entrepreneurs. I don't think I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I was like afraid of quitting. I was afraid of starting a new business. I was like, where's my next paycheck going to come from? How am I going to make rent? I don't think it's like natural to me like it is to many other people. But ultimately, my father and brother and mother and sister would call me and be like, why are you working for someone else? We're made to work for ourselves. And so left my job as a lawyer to start a business back in New York City in 2012. sold that business in 2013, and then started Native in 2015.
And Moiz, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. So if Native is not your first business, can you tell us a little bit about the first and the differences between being an entrepreneur the first time and then the second time? Give us a little more detail.
Sure. So the first business was a flash sales business. It's really interesting. I feel like e-commerce or like, startups are very fashionable in the same way that like clothing is fashionable. At one point you had the Uber for everything. At one point you had the Groupon for everything. And before all of that, you sort of had a flash sales site. Like you had flash sales sites that were selling products. I started a flash sales site with one of my law school classmates called Caskers. It was it wasn't a small business. We grew to probably $5 or $6 million in ARR before we sold the business. The difference between that business and Native was drastic in many ways, like just a difference in scale, a difference in hiring. My second business with Native, I was a solo founder. With my first business, I had a co-founder. And really having a co-founder in my first business was critical to helping me succeed. I felt like it gave me someone that I could chat with and someone that I could commiserate with. And the highs were higher and the lows were less low as a result of having this person there. But it was an incredible learning experience. You don't know how to start a website. You don't know how to hire anybody. You don't know what matters. You don't know what metrics you should be thinking about. And all the first 2 years or the first 18 months of running that business was really like a college education in terms of what matters when it comes to e-commerce and consumer products. I think my second business, I sort of understood the fundamentals and was like, you know what, I understand what revenue looks like and I understand why conversion rate is important. And I understand why I should be looking at bounce rate. And when there's a problem with my website or a problem with our marketing, I'm able to identify where that problem is occurring and try and fix it. And so really that foundation from the first business helped me achieve the success I had in my second business. But the biggest difference was scale. We went from doing, at Native, we were within the first year, we were doing $500,000 a month. By the time we sold the business, we were doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue a year. And so it was just a much larger business with a much more exciting profile.
Interesting. And also the differentiation between being a solo founder as opposed to your first experience with a partner.
It's a lot lonelier when you're by yourself. The first year of my second business, for the first year of Native, I was the only employee at the company. And so, you're just sitting there, and when you've got a problem, you've got to figure it out yourself. You don't have anyone to go to lunch with, or no person that you routinely go to lunch with, no like office mates to chat with. And so I'm not sure what it was like for everyone else at this table, but for me, it was incredibly lonely for the first few months of the business.
Maria and Nancy, what would you say to that in terms of being solo founders? Who do you depend on for being an extra listening ear?
I mean, when I first started, again, I was operating from a back room at home. I was a one-woman show, and the operation was tiny. So I didn't have a co-founder, I didn't have anyone with me, and I was just purely doing everything myself. But what I did very early on, I developed a network of other entrepreneurs around me that were at a similar stage in their development. So a lot of other startups, whether they were, I had friends who had a startup in the nail business or in the hair care business, in the jewelry, in fashion. And I developed a nice community of other entrepreneurs that we could meet up for coffee and exchange ideas. And it would be, oh, I'm looking for an accountant, or I'm looking for a recruiter. And they would be like, oh, I've just used this person, I can recommend you to them. And I know that it's very trendy right now. A lot of people ask me, did you have a mentor and who mentored you? And, I wish. There were no mentors at the time. You just had to figure it all out yourself, which is the fun thing about everything. So I did build that network of like-minded startups and entrepreneurs, and we would get together and just figure it all out between ourselves. And that was very, very encouraging and supportive to know that you're not alone and you have other people in the same stage of their career going through the same things.
Yeah, I would my experience, was very similar to Maria's. You know, it's so funny when you are so passionate about something and you almost feel like there's some force that's just kind of guiding you down the path, because when you look back at it, you're like, wow, I met all the people I needed to meet to ultimately get to the point I needed to get to. And yeah, similar to Maria, I didn't have, you know, official mentors, but I met a lot of other, you know, founders and CEOs in the space, and we became genuine friends. I mean, it's still the same way for me today. So many of my mentors and closest trusted advisors are other beauty brand founders that are going through similar things as me. And we have a community of trust and honesty, and we're so supportive of each other. I mean, I have some founders that are in the same category as me, and we still, you know, share ideas and contacts. So it's been very uplifting to have that type of community.
Wonderful. Well, I feel like this is a good time to take a question from our audience. If you don't know how to submit a question, please use the chat function or Q&A. So our first question is to everyone. Your stories are very inspiring. Thank you. You all seem to have in common a foundation in business building or finance. How did you transition from a more traditional mindset into the more creatively driven world of beauty and wellness? Who would like to take a pass at that?
I'm happy to. I'll tell you, like for me, it was you just have to be willing to ask a lot of dumb questions and sort of be okay looking dumb to a lot of people. Like when we were launching a deodorant, people would be like, okay, how big is this deodorant? Like how many grams is this deodorant going to be? And I'm like, I have no idea. What is common in the industry? People would be like, okay, what type of packaging do you want? Do you want, when we were launching, body wash, they're like, do you want, Boston round components? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think like the hardest thing is to be okay looking stupid to a lot of people. You have to get really comfortable with that, or at least I had to get really comfortable with that. And a lot of times I had to be like, I don't know, I'm gonna have to look this up, or I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you explain it more? And there are some people who will respond to you and say, hey, you're not a real entrepreneur. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not interested in having this conversation, or will like belittle you. And then there are other people who you will develop closer relationships with that are really helpful and be like, this is what a Boston round component looks like, or a traditional 2 and 3.25 ounces. And so those are the people you gravitate towards, and those are the people that'll sort of help you and guide you through what you're going to have to go through. But in reality, I found for me, being able to say I don't know or I have no idea what you're talking about was critical in order to help me like become an entrepreneur in the CPG space.
Maria,
I can
want to
answer
add to that?
Yeah. A lot of people ask me, if I want to start my own beauty business, do I need to have a beauty background? And I didn't. And I feel what's the best thing about not coming from the industry where you want to start up a business with is that it allows you to take risks that you wouldn't otherwise take if you were coming from that industry. And to give you an example, it was about year 5 of our business, and I just moved into a small office. I had a team of 2, and we were doing okay. We weren't doing great as a business. We haven't found our vibe by that point, and we were about to launch our first anti-aging serum. A package comes from my lab. I look at the serum. We get it out, we try it. It felt beautiful. It smelled great. It looked like a very luxurious product. But then I was sitting down with my team thinking, I mean, are we going to launch an anti-aging serum? How is this going to be different to everyone else? We are against a lot of competition. So going through the ingredients, I realized that one of the ingredients related to viper venom. So I say to my team, let's just call it snake serum. And they were like, oh my God, you're gonna take us out of business, don't do this. So, but we talked about it, and it's like, what is there to lose? We're already doing fine, we're not doing great. So we decided, we went with it, we capitalized on the name, we made the product black, we did a photo shoot with snakes around it, and the product became viral. we started getting orders and shipping pallets, opening new markets all over the world. And that's the one single product that put Rodial on the map. And honestly, I think if I was to come from the beauty industry, if that was my background, I would never have taken the risk to launch such an innovative product with a massive risk. And this is the one product that, this is the reason I'm still here in this business. So I think not coming from the industry, it's the best thing. You figure it all out and you take the right risks.
Well, also it's interesting because Maria and Nancy, you both come from backgrounds of finance. And so I'm curious to know how, with your time in banking, did that give you a leg up? And also, frankly, what other resources from a financial standpoint would you recommend to aspiring entrepreneurs to get ahead?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what it did do is that it helped me balance the creative and business side of what I do. It gave me the confidence that I could do both. I've always been a creative person. I've been into art. I had a jewelry business while I was an undergrad. I created jewelry, but through my time at Goldman Sachs, I got a lot of skills that I think really gave me the confidence to really manage the business side of things. So whether that was, negotiating contracts or hosting meetings or, pushing back on pricing or understanding margins, there were a lot of things that I developed during that time that gave me the confidence to do it when running my own business. So I think that was critically helpful. But I would say for someone that maybe is more creative but doesn't have the finance background, it's important to know what you know and what you don't know. And then that way, when you think about, building your advisory group or your network, you can kind of, target people that have some of the skills that maybe you don't have, so you know who to call, so that they can put you in touch with the right people or help you to think through things that maybe just don't come naturally to you. So I think it's really, really important to be honest with yourself and also to be open to relying on other people or even, forming an advisory team to help you navigate the things that you're less comfortable with.
Wonderful. And also, while we're on that, Nancy, you recently took on a private equity partnership with VMG.
Yeah.
Could you share with us what led you to that decision? Has it been difficult to have another partner in the room or, a blessing? Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been a blessing. Obviously, taking funding really helps to provide a second step of security and scalable growth backing for the company. And that's, so essential, especially when you're on a fast-paced growth trajectory the way that Briogeo is. But even beyond that, VMG has been so instrumental in helping me to establish a management team, something that I hadn't had in the past. They were really thoughtful in helping to get the right candidates in front of me, because it's really hard to do everything on your own, and having a partner who knows how to do it because they've been there with other brands and they have a track record of success has been tremendously helpful.
Excellent. And Moiz and Maria, how would you both think about any investment partnerships?
Well, what's interesting for me, coming from the finance background and working for Salomon Brothers, I put together a business plan. Here I am trying to get investment for Rodial when I first started. So I reach out to about 20 VCs. I get 12 responses. I have 5 meetings. And I get 0 investment. So this is how I started. I got 0 investment. And this wasn't just, I don't even have the money to start the business. It is a slap in the face because it would have validated my business plan, would have validated my idea. So I didn't get that. So at the beginning, I started from back at home with a £20,000 investment, which were my savings, and I was a one-woman show. But then going to where we are today, I mean, over the years, we have been approached multiple times by everyone, whether it's funds or corporates, everyone has been knocking on our doors, you can imagine. And actually last year, and it's public information, so I can talk about it, we did decide to sell a stake in the business, and we went public with it. We went through the process, but I mean, what you read in the papers, it's not true. You know, we have an asset, and then people who were like knocking on our door, they were saying, you're too big, you're too small, you're too hip, you're not hip enough. You are located in this region. We want you to be in a different region. So, you know, you may be an amazing brand, but it all has to fit in together to get that investment. So we went through the process. It was a lot of work, and you have to take your eye off the ball running the business, which I regretted doing it. And at the end, we ended up with a couple of offers. But neither of them had the same vision as I had for my brand. So we stepped back and we didn't go for the investment, and we decided to remain private. And we are probably the only brand turning over in the region of $50 million right now with both our businesses, and not having a penny of external investment. We're a family business and we're running it ourselves. And you know, a lot of people ask, would you ever sell? I feel that if you've been through the tough times and you've done it yourself, and I've always wanted to work for myself and not have a boss, we've been through the tough times, so we'll continue doing so. It's a very unusual opinion, I think, within the industry, but yeah, you need a bit of variety here.
Moiz, what would you contribute on that end? You've had some great sales.
Sure. Yeah, we raised a small amount of money from early investors, basically the first year that we launched. It was super helpful for me, really to have like a sounding board and make sure the ideas that I was thinking about, or sort of the business focus, wasn't crazy. I mean, like, it wasn't like, you know, they were hands-on or operating the business in any way. It was more like they were a sounding board that I needed, and my advisory board, although it was very informal, and I really appreciated that. So we raised some money from a guy named Paul Ferris at Azure Capital, and then generally just like angel investors, including like the founder of Thrive Market, Nick Green, and that was fantastic. And to be honest, we spoke at one point to VMG about raising money. I think VMG is an absolutely fantastic organization. I'm really like close. I'm close with a lot of the people who work there. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
They understand CPG maybe better than anybody else in the world. Like if you walk into their office, you're just surrounded by brands that you've heard of that you had no idea VMG was a part of. Like, you know, I think they were in Kind, they're in Spindrift, Justin's Peanut Butter, just
Drunk
everything
Elephant
you could
for
possibly
beauty.
imagine.
Yeah.
Drunk Elephant, yeah, sure. Just everything you could imagine. I just love the way that they think about it. I think that like investors who agree with your philosophy and push you the right amount can be incredibly helpful. And you know, the way that I got to know VMG is we were thinking about raising money from them, and over a 4-month period, you know, we courted them and they courted us. It was a really slow process, and I appreciated that as well, because like it wasn't just like, you know, when you get into these relationships, it's not just a check and then the relationship is over. It's a check and now the relationship begins, and it's a significant material relationship that you're going to start dealing.
Moiz? I think we might have had a quick freeze there for a moment. Okay. Maria and Nancy, are you live?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, great. Well, then we will keep going. Just to change gears slightly. So Maria, you have had a much longer entrepreneurial journey than most, at 20 years. So can you share with us a little bit about what keeps you motivated?
Yeah. Well, it does go back to, I still feel I am that girl who was fired from banking 20 years ago and started up her business. I still feel that I do operate within a very entrepreneurial environment within my team. And then not having someone to report to and just being very, very true to what I want to do with my business, I think it's what drives me. And as long as I wake up and I'm excited to go to work and be creative and make things happen, I can get on doing this forever. But the other thing that it's important is I have 3 companies, so I don't only have one. So in a way, I may not have sold my first company and started a new one, but I've started another 2 companies over the last 20 years. So we have Rodial, which is our luxury skincare business, which is my first company. And then 8 years ago, we launched our millennial masstige brand called Nip and Fab. That is now flying, and it's one of the fastest growing millennial brands here in the UK. And then I also, over 3 years ago, I launched my own media platform that's called Overnight Success, which includes my 2 books, my podcast, and a lot of other personal stuff that I do when it comes to mentoring and sort of being involved with young entrepreneurs. So I have in effect started 3 businesses, but I haven't sold one to start the other. I've just started them over 20 years. And that keeps me going because I always have fresh projects coming up.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah.
And Nancy, Briogeo has grown so massively, so quickly. So can you share with us, what are some of the tactics that you've used to really push the needle?
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of our first marketing programs ever, this was in 2013, was with Ipsy. I had launched 4 products, and our hero product, which still is our #1 product today, our Don't Despair Repair Deep Conditioning Mask, we did a few 100,000 samples with Ipsy out of the gate, and it was incredible. Especially for a brand new brand that didn't really have much of an identity. People hadn't heard of it or tried it yet. Sampling in such a massive way was crucial. So we did that first program and we're blown away with the results and the conversion. And we still do partnerships with Ipsy until today, but obviously it's really gotten a lot more robust, especially with Sephora, being able to sample with them, being able to have real estate on their homepage, on their social. They've been such an incredible partner and brand building collaborator with Briogeo. You know, all of those things combined have really helped to get us to the point where we are today.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Ipsy loves Briogeo too, so we're very happy with the partnership. Moiz, back to you. So I understand that digital advertising was really an important component for both the build and the launch of Native. Can you share with us more around your approach to advertising?
Yeah, I think what we did was we rode the wave. Like, you know, a lot of people will be like, oh, what are the ads that work best? It really depends. Like, you know, there were eras of different types of ads. At first, when we launched, they were really desktop ads, then mobile ads, then video. Like, they went from static images to videos, and we went from, you know, horizontal videos to vertical videos, and we went from like content videos to user-generated videos. So, you know, at the heyday when Native was really bustling in an independent company, what we were doing is we were asking customers to give us a video review of the deodorant sort of in a thrift shot with an iPhone, and we use those videos as assets both on our website in order to improve conversion rates and as Facebook ads. And those videos were fantastic and really drove a ton of success for us.
Fantastic. And from a marketing perspective, Maria and Nancy, we have one of our questions from the audience here who says that this is very inspiring. And as a startup, how did you determine your initial marketing budgets and where to invest those dollars in order to create brand awareness or drive the business forward? Anything that you would want to add on to that?
I mean, we had 0 marketing budget since we didn't have an external investment, but that was really effective actually, because when you don't have tons of money to spend, whatever you have, it needs to have the return on its investment. So, I mean, the first big thing that we did when we had a little budget was with Nip and Fab. We did a collaboration with Kylie Jenner. That is when she was 16 years old. She was the first campaign that she ever did with a beauty brand before she became this mega star and launched her own range. And for us to be able to get Kylie, it was all very organic. She got hold of our glycolic pads through a makeup artist that we knew. He used them on a shoot. And next day she posts about them on Instagram. This is before the day that people were posting, celebrities were posting products for money. It was organic. We got so much attention for our brand, so much traffic. And then we got in touch on Instagram, actually. We DM'd her and we got in touch with Kris Jenner, and we connected, and we got her to come to London and did the first ever beauty campaign with Nip and Fab. And that was amazing. That was a time that we were the first brand. We were able to afford her at the time, but the attention that we got to the brand was unbelievable. So sometimes it's a combination of lack of making the right investment and just hustling. But you know, if we were to try now to get Kylie Jenner, that is a very different story. But at that point in time, we took the risk. She wasn't even known for beauty, and that risk paid off. So we don't do a massive marketing campaign every year, but when we find an opportunity that we think we can be first to market with an idea or a personality or something new that we can do, we go all in 200%.
And Nancy, thank you. You know, you chatted about Ipsy and also Sephora. Is there anything else from a marketing perspective that you would want to add?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, when we were starting out, the budgets were definitely tight. So we did a lot of product seeding. So we weren't necessarily paying influencers at the time, but as that budget started to grow, we did, you know, test some formal partnerships with some huge names like Tati Westbrook and Kathleen Lights. And these were two examples of influencers that were already Briogeo fans. They had been using Briogeo before we had even approached them. And it was just a matter of actually, you know, formalizing the partnership, you know, to guarantee the visibility. And that was hugely tremendous for the brand. But then I'll also say too, I mean, really good innovation and having product that works is marketing in itself. And especially when we launched our Scalp Revival collection in 2017, it was so innovative. It really helped to change the game within prestige hair, which had historically been focused really primarily on styling, to this new focus of treating your scalp and your hair the same way that you do your skin. So that innovation prompted awards. It prompted a lot of press. It prompted a lot of retail interest as well. So sometimes you don't necessarily have to invest in marketing. You just invest in really strong innovation, and that will, you know, unravel for you.
Yeah, innovation and the hustle.
Yes.
I'm sure that while you all were putting these ideas together, that you have multiple different ideas when you were starting companies. So when you were thinking about what will be successful, what factors did you consider when you were trying to hone down and curate your real idea that you brought to market?
Can answer that. You know, it's interesting what you say, and I was never going to be the serial entrepreneur with 1,000 ideas. And when I started, our range was tiny. Rodial was just 4 products. But I always think that it's not about the idea, it's about the execution. You may have the best idea in the world, but how do you execute it? This is what is going to make you successful. So I've always thought since the beginning, keep it small, keep it tight. The philosophy of Rodial has always been targeted treatments to specific skin concerns. So we've always kept it tight. We've always kept our message concise. And it was all about keeping the message going, being consistent, and executing it 2,000%.
Well, what is one piece of advice? You know, we have so many people, thousands listening in today who have their own ideas of the brands that they want to bring to market. If you were going to give them one piece of advice, what would it be? And by all means, it doesn't have to be one. You can use artistic liberty here.
I would say, especially given how much beauty has evolved and, there are more beauty brands that exist today than I think ever in the history of time. It's so important out of the gate to really have your story, your brand DNA, what you stand for, your voice, your visual identity, I think super strong out of the gate. Even when I launched Briogeo in 2013, we were not tight in that respect. If we had launched the way that we did then, now, I think it would have been a lot more difficult. Because the category has grown so much, I think it's just as important to focus on the formula as it is your branding and your storytelling and how you get that across to the consumer. So I think it's really important. I mentor a handful of budding beauty and other entrepreneurs, and it's something that I tell them all the time.
Okay. I can take it. So my advice is say yes to any opportunity that comes your way and then figure it out later. And why I'm saying this, it's a lot of people ask me, when do you know it's the right time to set your own business? When do you think that you're ready? And the answer is never. There's never going to be an ideal situation that you have plenty of money in the bank ready to fund your business. You're never going to be in a situation personal that everything is perfect. I have people who connect with me. They're saying, I'm about to have a baby and I want to start a business. Well, I've had 2 babies while I've been trying to set up my business. So my answer to this is, if you have an opportunity, if you feel strongly about your idea, go for it and figure it out later, because if you wait for the perfect time, it's hard to find the perfect moment. So just go for it.
I think the biggest piece of advice I'd offer is to
Oh no.
yourself. Owners of companies, particularly that are like venture backed, will often reach out and sort of are not paying attention to the facts on the ground and their KPIs and what's working and what's not. And they're sort of trying to focus on what's rosy instead of trying to focus on what's gray and difficult. And I think it's really important to focus on the difficult. And if something's not working, it really behooves you to start focusing on that. It's not fun and it's not easy, but to try and make that better.
Well, and actually there's a question from the audience that I think is pertinent now, which is, with COVID-19, is this a good time to start a business?
I mean, I would,
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, I think in general, people have a bit more time than they've had prior. People aren't commuting. You're not absorbed with, an after work social life per se. And there's a lot of things that you can start doing now that maybe you didn't have time to do before, where you can be a lot more thoughtful and do the research and set up Zoom calls with people who are doing what it is you want to do. So I think it's a great time to really self-develop, self-introspect, and business plan and network. I think that there are so many methods by which you can network virtually. So maybe, taking more of a baby step into whatever it is you want to do because you have a little bit more time now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say this is the perfect time to look into starting your own business. So if you're thought about starting your own business and you had a full-time job or you were busy doing other things, this is the perfect time. I actually have an episode on my Overnight Success podcast, which is called How to Pivot During the Time of a COVID-19. And one of the elements that I talk about is the steps of how to start your own business, how to do your research. And in this day and age, there is just so much. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Google, everything that you can ever think of. How do I start a business? How do I take the first steps? There's just so much information right there. There's never been a better time that you have a lot of time and a lot of resources. You could be all sitting down, putting your business plan together. And the minute we're out of this lockdown, knock on those doors and get your business started. So for me, this is the perfect time. And also, I started the business after the shock of getting fired. If you haven't got fired and you're still employed by your current company, then this is the shock. The lockdown is the shock that you needed to wake you up and show you what your real passion is. So go for it.
I think the answer is it's very nuanced. You know, there's this great line in Star Wars that I feel like I say a lot these days, which is only a Sith speaks in absolutes. Like there's no perfect time to start a business and no bad time to start a business, but it depends on what that business is. If you're starting to sell suitcases today, it's probably not a great day to start selling suitcases. Like people aren't getting on airplanes and people aren't traveling. If you're thinking about starting a hotel brand, today is probably not the day. At the same time, if you're thinking about starting a cookware brand, today may be a perfect time because people are staying at home and really enjoying that exercise. So it depends on what the business is. And it depends on there's no right time or wrong time overall. There can be a right time or wrong time for your category, but it behooves you and sort of the founder to ride those waves and to understand what's working and what's not.
Yes. I feel like the next 12 months are really pivotal in terms of the landscape is so new. So if you are an optimist, it's the perfect time for innovation.
That's right.
So with that, we have about 5 minutes left. I would love to hear from each of you and certainly how it relates to your own incredible brands. What are you really excited about over the next 12 months?
I mean, I can take this one. I have to say, always been very technologically challenged. I am not the first one to adopt new technologies. I am in kindergarten when it comes to technology. So over the last few weeks, I have forced myself to learn new skills, to embrace technology like I never had. Which is what I needed right now to take my business into the next stage. Also, the fact that we have forced ourselves to communicate via Zoom. Just as an example, I have a team in the US, and we would have an occasional call once in a while. And now we started Zooming and connecting and looking at each other and connecting more often. And this lockdown has taught me that in the future, we can all get connected in a better way. And we're putting now the infrastructure so we can all operate our businesses faster and quicker and more efficient for the future. And I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, similar to that, this experience has really put us in a position where we're doubling down on our digital business, both supporting our own direct-to-consumer business, but also supporting the e-commerce businesses of our retailers. And I'm actually really excited to see how all of these efforts we're putting in now are really going to pay off for us long-term. We're also, taking some new risks and trying some new things. I'm really excited to actually host my own virtual webinar with some of Briogeo's top clients in a couple of weeks, things that probably wouldn't have been on my most immediate priority list has shifted that way. And I'm super, super excited about just some of the new opportunities and initiatives that we're working on because of all of this.
I'm really excited to see how brands sort of think about how to live and thrive in the next 12 months. I feel like, there's this brand called Outdoor Voices that makes athleisure wear that's really fantastic. I'm a big fan of it. And they've started to make face masks. There's a bunch of brands that have started to, a bunch of distilleries that used to make alcohol are now making hand sanitizers. So for me, it's really exciting to see how these businesses sort of innovate in a market that has changed so drastically in the last 4 months, and how quickly they do that. Like if you watch television, TV ads are all a month ago, TV ads were already talking about how you're not supposed to touch people and how there's contactless delivery. I had no idea that brands like Domino's, for instance, could get their act together so quickly, decide that they should be doing contactless deliveries and run television ads when it comes to that. Really makes me realize how quick the pace of the universe is. And it makes me excited to watch other people adapt to that universe.
Yeah. I mean, I've been incredibly impressed by how quickly the world has pivoted. We have a few more questions from our audience and a few more minutes. One that I think is quite pertinent is around the future of brick and mortar with the new landscape. Would anyone take a pass around what do you think the future is, especially considering the effects of this pandemic? So a lot of people doing curbside pickup for,
Yeah, I mean, I can speak about that. We work with Blue Mercury in the US at one of our biggest accounts, and I've been very impressed with how quickly they bounced back. They are doing curbside pickup with, and we do FaceTime consultations with our clients, and then they come and pick up their product. But you know, in general, brick and mortar for us, we are a brand that was born within brick and mortar because we have been around for a while. But even with the direct to consumer model, for us, brick and mortar is still going to be important, as this is a way for people, for our customers to get to connect with us, and not use it as a way that you go to the store and get a tester and you try the product. It's all about hubs and places where we can organize events and we can get our communities together. And I feel that even post lockdown, more than ever, people will need that community feeling. And when we're all allowed to go out there and social distancing rules loosen up a little bit, I think the feeling of that community and going into your local store to experience an event, I think these are going to be more important than ever.
Nancy, anything to add on that, or Moiz?
Yeah, no, I think what Maria said is absolutely right. I think that brick and mortar is extremely important to our businesses because, you know, our clients are really our community. It gives us an opportunity to event, to connect, to educate in a way that's just not possible digitally. So I'm really excited for the future of brick and mortar coming back online, because I do think it's an essential part of the business.
I think that we've basically moved forward 3 to 4 years when it comes to adopting digital in e-commerce and CPG. You know, there are people who never used Instacart or online purchasers before that have now used it and will never go back, and that's fantastic. I think it really depends on how long COVID lasts before we're able to determine how big of an impact this has. Like, does this for 6 months, next 20 years, like 20 years from now, are people walking to Costco, Target, and Walmart the way that they were 6 months ago? I'm not so sure.
Remains to be seen. Well, thank you all so much for so many incredible insights today and such a rich discussion. There are questions, because people have been writing in, that we will try to get back to with our new digital world and follow up on. But on behalf of Tribe Dynamics, I certainly thank all of you for joining us today, and thank you to our audience for joining in.
Thank you.
Thanks so
for
much.
having us.
Stay safe,
Thank
everyone.
you.